Good, okay.
Thanks, thanks, Steph.
Are you able to hear us okay now? Just a thumbs up.
Yeah, we can hear now.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so moving on to public comment on items not on the agenda. We don't have any members of the public in the room. Anyone online? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move along. So just a quick check on quorum. We have 4 reps. I'm guessing that's quorum for we have 5.
All right, nice.
So I'm guessing that's quorum for the T-TAC. So we do have an action item approval of the minutes for September 11th. So we just need a motion and a second for that action. I believe that's the only action for today.
To approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. Right, any objections to that? If not, we can call that approved. Looks good, thank you. If you have any comments or questions about that after the fact, please reach out to Drew on that. So moving on to item 4, the SCTA Comprehensive Transportation Plan update. There are a number of pieces to this today. Did you have a comment?
No.
No, okay.
Eagerly awaiting.
Okay, great. So we have a number of pieces to the Comprehensive Transportation Plan update. I'll be providing a quick update on the project list update. Adam Garcia will be walking through some of the transit metrics that we're working on for our performance and progress report that we'll be presenting to our board and the public as part of the CTP update. And then between Ross and I, we can talk about engagement and what's going on there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just have a few graphics I can share. So Ross, if you can make me a co-host or share, go ahead and bring that up. And while we're working on that, one piece of our comprehensive transportation plan is the project list, and we have a number of, visionary transit projects in the comprehensive transportation plan. One thing I would note about the CTP project list is it's financially unconstrained, so it's an opportunity to look at possibilities going forward and where we'd like to go in the future. So let me go ahead and bring that up. So we kicked off the comprehensive transportation plan update this summer with scoping. We've been doing outreach since then and working on updating some of the information and data for that. The past month or so, we've been working on reviewing the projects in the adopted plan and then kind of teeing up how to update the projects that are already in the plan and then open up a call for new projects for the plan as well. So there are 2 pieces to that, updating the existing projects and then incorporating new project ideas into the plan. So here's a look of the breakdown of different project types in the current CTP. There are almost 300 with a estimated fiscal need of about $10 billion. This is looking forward to 2050, so a pretty long time frame. You can see that we have between 30 and 40 transit projects in there as well, with a pretty significant fiscal need, about $5 billion on the transit side. So there are a number of reasons we track projects in the CTP. One is to just have a holding place for transportation needs and priorities. So one of the things we do in the CTP is look at what we'd like to do in the future. So in one of the previous presentations I went through on the CTP, we have a number of goals We want to work towards achieving those, and we want to identify transportation projects and programs that'll help us move in that direction. Another thing we do is evaluate future transportation system performance. So where are we going to be in the future? So we look at population and employment growth, where people are going to live, where they're going to be working, and future project implementation and how things could change, right? How many people are riding different routes and different transit systems, what bottlenecks are happening around the county, and what the major travel flows are. So in order to do that, we really need to have a good idea of, what's on the short term and also longer term radar as far as transportation improvements are concerned. So another major need in the CTP is to feed projects into the regional transportation plan and other regional planning documents. So the RTP, projects need to be in the RTP to access regional funding. So that's a really important step. If you want to be moving in that direction and have projects in the RTP, the CTP is a starting point for that. And then SCTA is also required as part of our funding and programming activities to have an updated policy and planning document that guides that process on our level. So here's a look at how projects kind of flow through the CTP into the RTP and other funding programs here in the Bay Area. So you can see that outer ring. This is the entire universe of transportation ideas. As I said before, the CTP is financially unconstrained. So it's a place to be visionary and look at projects that will move us towards achieving our goals. These projects can come from capital improvement plans, general plans, your short range transit plans, and other long range planning activities as well. So this is where we can start thinking about how our transportation system can change in the future. So moving on from that, moving to a fiscally constrained project list. Once projects start identifying funding and are moving closer towards implementation, they can move into that regional transportation plan. So those regional funding programs can be accessed. And then eventually move into near-term programming documents such as the Caltrans TIP, and then move into the category of a committed project, where they're teeing up for implementation and eventually being constructed or implemented. So I mentioned there are two pieces of this. One is updating the existing projects in the CTP. So we have project spreadsheets for each of you that I'll be sending out in the next couple of days. So the information we collect as part of the CTP includes a project name, a generalized description and location of the project, project type, cost, and amount and source of identified funding, and also a rough time frame of when you would expect that project to be implemented. So projects with a cost of less than 1 million will lump into programmatic categories. So, we really encourage you to focus on those larger projects as part of the CTP. And then, I'll get this out in the next few days, along with some instructions on how to work with those spreadsheets, and we're looking for feedback on that by October 31st. So on the transit side, I think each of you have between 5 and maybe 15 projects on that spreadsheet. So I'll get that out soon. If you have any questions or would like to meet to talk about specific ideas, let me know. We can get that set up. I also want to mention the process for adding new project ideas to the CTP. So we're going to be kicking that off at our next technical advisory committee meeting in late October. So we'll issue a call. And the type of information we need in the CTP, it's very broad, right? These are visionary projects that are financially unconstrained. So we will have an online application you can fill out. And there's a little more time we're allowing for that. We are looking for new project ideas to be submitted as part of that process by December 13th. So more coming soon. If you'd like to tune in to the next TAC meeting, I'll discuss it a little bit more there. But I can run through that process and the application at the next T-TAC meeting as well. There'll be time from November to December to kind of work on that. Here's a look at the schedule. So right now we're working on updating existing project information. I mentioned October 31st is our deadline for getting that information in. The call for new CTP projects will be happening starting on October 24th through December 13th. And once we have all of that information, we'll process it, update all the lists, and come back with a draft updated CTP project list early next year, January or February, depending on how many changes we get and how many new projects we get. So we'll use that as part of our CTP performance assessment. We use our travel model and other tools to evaluate kind of where those will get us in the future, you know, in the context of future growth in Sonoma County. So we'll have some report outs on that, you know, next year. And then our programming and projects team is going to be working on the SCTA funding program cycle 2 call for projects next summer. And that's where, you know, we work on that near-term funding of priority projects within the next, you know, 5 to 10 years or shorter. So building on that, one thing we're going to be adding as part of this CTP is we'll be taking a look at that funding program cycle 2 call and developing a short-term implementation plan as part of the CTP as well, right? Like we're going to be including all those vision projects kind of at the high level and looking out to 2050, but we want to look at what we can do in the next 10 years as well. And, you know, really kind of tearing off that, you know, funding plan that's developed next summer. So we'll be wrapping all that up, you know, gathering all that information, updating the CTP, you know, writing the sections, and looking to release a final CTP by the end of next year. So pretty abbreviated schedule, but you know, MTC is going to be kicking off their next regional transportation plan update in 2026. So they want us to have something in place by the time they start working on that. So that's our plan right now. And as I said before, I'll be getting those worksheets out in the next couple days. So be happy to take any questions or comments. You know, the spreadsheets, they're pretty simple, so I wouldn't get, yeah, there are about 12 fields in there, so it's not a lot of information to take a look at and update. And if you have, you know, we really are looking for projects that are already completed, we can take those off the list, or if costs or specifications have changed, please kind of concentrate on that. And then through December, you know, start thinking about potential new project ideas we can add in there as well.
So is this capital and operating projects or only capital?
We do include a programmatic category for operating. So I'll take a look at the project list specifically and see how we broke that out, but yeah, we do include operating.
So unconstrained funding?
Yeah. Think big.
Well, I think it does kind of also speak to, you know, how does the CTP relate to Go Sonoma implementation? I mean, we are going to have additional operating funding. Are there projects that we want to propose that could be part of Go Sonoma operating implementation? May need to try to leverage some other funds, but it seems like there could be a relationship there, so.
Yeah, and the SCTA funding program, you know, that's where things start filtering down to,
Yeah.
you know,
Right, sure.
Here-
What can we actually fund? And
here are the big ideas and here's what we can actually do kind of in the next little while.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Chris, one suggestion, I can't remember the last CTP application because it's been a bit, but this already may be true, but if there's, yeah, as we apply for projects, I think there could be some multi-operator type projects, right? And so just having an application that has an easy way to identify if something is, you know, a multi-operating operator application, I think that would be really helpful. thinking of a few things we've discussed as a group as part of ties or mascots that, could potentially end up being a CTP project. So.
Yeah, right now, all the projects on there have one lead.
Mhm.
So, but that doesn't mean we couldn't have, a grouped project
Mhm.
with 3 or 4 sponsors in there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, just
Yeah.
a comment, or just to have awareness that that could be something that
Yeah.
comes through with maybe one agency takes the lead, but it would be sort of representing a group project.
yeah, that'd be great. All right, so yeah, look for those spreadsheets soon and please reach out if you have any questions. So moving on to the next piece of the CTP, Adam was going to provide some information on performance metrics that we're putting together on the transit side for our CTP progress report. So
Yeah, and Ross, if you could just help make me a share presenter, that'd be great.
You should be good to go.
All right. Thanks. Chris, if you want to give a little background, feel free.
Okay, great. So one thing we like to do as part of the CTP is provide a progress report and take a look at, current conditions, how people are traveling, growth trends, travel trends, but also look at some metrics tied to our goals and show kind of how we're doing, right? And our CTP cycle is usually around 5 years. We like to look at that 5-year window generally and see, what's happened over the past 5 years. The last 5 years have been a little weird, so
Right.
some of the information may look, there are reasons it looks weird, right? Like as we present this and look at it, we'll comment on that. And, everyone knows what's going on. There have been, strange dips that, we haven't seen in the past, but it's good to take a look at that and see how things are, see the recovery and how things are kind of shaping up. So with that, I'll go ahead and well, before you jump in, we break it into another pieces. We'll be putting together some generalized travel metrics like VMT, GHG, travel times, mode shifts, things like that. But we'll be taking something to our board in November. So we wanted to get specific feedback from this group on the transit focused performance metrics, how those look, if you have any concerns about how it's presented, or the data itself. And Adam can comment on this, but a lot of this data is coming from the National Transit Database. So, a source that you're very well familiar with. But if you have any other ideas for sources as well, please let us know. We'd love to kind of roll those into what we're, presenting out as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Adam.
All right, great. Can you all see my screen? Kind of white screen with text? Great.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that background, Chris. So we're going to be looking at a few different measures that we've used in the past CTPs. Passenger trips, transit vehicle revenue hours, combination of the two, passengers per vehicle revenue hours, and then also passenger trips per capita. These are the ones we're most aware of, as Chris said, but if you have other ideas, please feel free to send your recommendations our way. So something, unfortunately, is, you all know Dana's not available, but I know what you and her have all been working a lot on is just trying to kind of consider breaking apart some of what the NTD shows to just only show the Sonoma County routes. So these charts are kind of a preview and helping to think through what do we want to show in the final CTP and the progress report between these different options. So let's see. So moving forward, there we go. So this is starting off with kind of the unfiltered database, just showing all trips. We're looking from 2019 to 2023 for kind of our backcast. So let me know if you have any questions. We're not showing the detailed numbers, but you can kind of get a sense of the scale as well too. So kind of all feedback is welcome, and please stop me at any point. So yeah, you can see that the different operators are color coded there. For unlinked passenger trips per capita, this is challenging to do for just Sonoma County because of the intersection of a lot of the different routes with Marin. So in this case, this is only a metric that's available using kind of the unfiltered NTD data. So that is passenger trips per capita. And then transit vehicle revenue hours. And passengers per revenue hours. And so we'll have a chance to compare the two. But this is the other version, the Sonoma County routes, where they've been filtered down. And so we can start to see a little bit of the difference in the impact on transit vehicle revenue hours, passengers, and passengers per revenue hours. So in this case, the comparison, you can kind of start to see that there is, yeah, quite a noticeable difference in the dip in how the data is processed when you break apart just Sonoma County only. Also,
This
oh
is
yeah,
showing full system on the left and then Sonoma only on the right. Is that?
that's correct.
Okay.
And I think it's Sonoma County routes, so routes that go into and out of Sonoma County, I believe was what the final determination was. And then for transit vehicle revenue hours, again, the unfiltered NTD on the left, and then Sonoma County routes on the right. And then this is passengers per vehicle revenue hours for Sonoma County routes on the right and unfiltered NTD on the left. This one's probably the most shocking in terms of the difference. We kind of lose Petaluma Transit altogether just by the size of Golden Gate Transit. And this is just bus alone. This doesn't include ferry. But when you filter out just to Sonoma County, then you start to see more of the diversity of ridership per hours. And so, yeah, we're thinking, we don't want to show all of these charts, obviously, but want to be able to have a good narrative that's supported by T-TAC to be able to present these performance measures as part of the progress report in the CTP. So I'll open it up there and happy to jump around or answer any clarifying questions as well too.
This is Jared. Thanks. That's great data. I think it's good to see it in one place. It's good to see it at kind of the county-wide scale. I will say I find it a little, some of the charts, the way it's presented is a bit confusing to read some of the data, at least for me. I think something like bar charts, I think would be a bit more helpful for me to kind of digest it if you're wanting to look agency to agency, just kind of some input. But I think it's great data overall.
I had one question. For the passenger trips per capita, I mean, what is the population base that is being used for like SMART or Golden Gate, the operators that don't necessarily have a specific jurisdiction that they're serving?
Yeah, that is the challenge. That comes straight from NTD. It's not the urban service area. It's
Right.
something that's unique that they've calculated. And without knowing those boundaries, it makes it challenging to then be able to scale down to just Sonoma County.
For NTD, we report Petaluma population. That's easier. I don't know how like you guys report.
Yeah, we report the entire county, so our numbers can be very low.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not sure that's the most effective way to.
Yeah, you almost want to look more at your service area and like what's in it.
Or per TDA population.
Mhm.
That we're claiming.
So that'd be an interesting thing to throw in there. Is that in the coordinated claim? We should pull that service population. Okay.
Yeah, I think this one would probably have like a bunch of footnotes.
Yeah.
It's really confusing
Yeah.
for the public
Mhm.
to interpret, so this might be one worth some further looking at, because it's, it's a lot of different types of operators with different potential ways to discuss what the served area is, so, I mean, just because communities far away from, say, the 101 corridor, people could still be using those services, so it's hard. Yeah, I don't know what's based on for the regional operators, but
And I don't know how we do
Yeah.
it either.
Right.
David comment, but yeah, I don't know if he has a certain distance.
yeah,
A way of calculating, estimating.
yeah, so that one probably dig in a little more. And then my other comment, and this is really just thinking more about the inner city and regional operators. I mean, I think y'all would probably be interested in seeing like a passenger miles metric, right? Because that is a metric that for the longer haul services does show the amount of miles per trip, right? And that, for GHG reasons, I think is a helpful metric. So that's just a suggestion.
Yeah, we were looking at passenger miles where it also became apparent was that those smaller routes, for instance, the Petaluma Transit that has shorter trips, they definitely get dwarfed.
Well, yeah, city buses,
Against the long
our trips are
trips.
short. We have a lot of trips, but they tend to be short trips. So yeah, but
Yeah.
that's it.
I don't have that data handy, otherwise I would try to share it real quickly. But yeah, that's the other one we're considering or had considered.
And then is this all fixed route or fixed plus paratransit?
This would be fixed route and paratransit for the Sonoma County routes. And I believe it's for fixed route and paratransit. The on-demand, I think, was that I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it includes everything as well too, paratransit as well for
Okay.
the unfiltered.
And that's another kind of asterisk because the bus operators have to provide the paratransit service, but SMART doesn't have to provide like paratransit service. So I think it's worth noting, like the footnote.
Okay, that's helpful.
And then for Golden Gate, does it, I guess, are those numbers system wide, do you know? Because there's always the question of the Sonoma County split, the Marin.
Right.
This is like the whole system.
And I think that's where the comparison might be most helpful. So this is showing system-wide is on the left. So that includes San Francisco, Marin, and Sonoma Transit for Golden Gate. And then on the right are only Sonoma County routes, so routes that go through Sonoma County. So that would, I assume, include the 101. That's one of them, but maybe not other ones that don't come into Sonoma County.
Okay.
164, 172.
When you look at 101, does it include the entire route or only the Sonoma County mileage?
I'd have to check with Dana about that. I can't confirm.
You're
I don't
pulling
know for
from
sure.
NPD, it's probably the whole thing because you would otherwise have to parse it out with data from Golden Gate to get to the Sonoma County piece specifically.
Looking at it looks like it would probably be the whole route, yeah, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we do have some information from the transit integration work. So, I think Dana and Adam have been working some with that, but we can confirm kind of how that's broken out.
Yeah, it's always part of the discussion is what is the most apples to apples when you have someone like Golden Gate. It's tricky because you kind of want to see both. You want to see the whole thing because there's value and people go in the full length of the trip from like Sonoma County and San Francisco, but it's also helpful to see the Sonoma County portions of it to get a feel for that too. You almost kind of want to look at it both ways and it's hard to kind of capture that in like charts and tables at times,
Well, and it might be just more useful to have fixed route and paratransit, and then you can combine the whole thing. But it seems like we should just be looking at fixed route and paratransit for the three local operators. I guess in Golden Gate, but
Yeah, that could be something possible. Have a separate paratransit chart.
then you have to have a separate fixed route chart as well.
Yeah, we can do some data
I
dancing,
agree
but
with Jared. I think these charts are kind of confusing. I like bar charts and something that's a little easier to decipher.
yeah, I agree. I was challenged a little bit with bar charts when you have multiple operators over the course of several years. But I could know if that's, yeah, I don't have a version of that to share right now, but it makes it a little bit tricky as well. We had,
Show it two ways. I mean, I think that can
Yeah.
be valuable depending on what you're trying to show. So, I mean, you
mhm,
could have a bar and a, whatever this is called.
yeah,
Well, the stacked, I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
stacked line or something.
okay. Well, this has been, yeah, very helpful feedback.
This is Owen. I just have one quick question for you. What is it looks like these are going up to through FY 22. Is that going to be the time frame of this data in the final report? I do know that a few of these metrics like vehicle revenue, hours and miles and ridership are available on a monthly basis from NTD.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we were going at the, let's see, going to the annual data. Let's, yeah, but if we, that was just for convenience to try to, you know, keep it within our 5-year horizon. To through 2023.
There are a few bites that we'll have at this as well. So as part of the progress report, we're trying to use kind of that like 5-year period. So, but in the actual plan that we're going to be updating and drafting next year, we'll have the opportunity to pull the latest and best data into that. So we'll take a look at that monthly stuff if we can get that in there. That's a big piece of the CTP, right? Is that reference section that you know people can pull off their shelf and grab a chart or see what's going.
I think everyone's numbers are better in 24. You know, we're all doing our NTDs or due at the end of the month, so we will have the numbers.
Well, maybe what we can do for our progress report, that's, you know, I'll talk about this in a minute. We're gonna be doing a virtual town hall and a report to our board. It may be worth, as part of the transit, having a current transit ridership, just snapshot towards the end,
so, yeah.
just showing
Yeah,
that right now.
yeah, that would be very easy to do.
Yeah.
Because I think I do have the first 2 quarters of this year, but I've just been keeping them out. So yeah, the data is there. It'd be easy to add if there's a nice clear way. So we could, yeah, add kind of a little point to where it's current or include that somehow. Agree. That sounds good.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. So the last item we just wanted to let everyone know about on the CTP is our engagement and outreach efforts. So we do have a live survey out there. Ross has been working with a few of you to get some information posted about that with QR codes. And then we are going to be holding a virtual town hall meeting on October 22nd from 6 to 7:30, where we'll be walking through what the CTP is, having some interactive surveys and activities, having some preliminary numbers on progress, and then talking about how people can be involved. So we've been out in the community at different events promoting our survey and talking about the plan, but this is kind of our first big SCTA sponsored event that we'll be hosting.
And what was the date?
22nd.
22nd, okay.
Yeah. And we have did we put a save? We have the survey in here, but once Drew gets back, he's out sick. We can ask him to get the save the date out to this group as well. Okay, Ross can get that out.
There's a date and I'll put the survey.
Thank you, Ross. All right, so moving on to regional funding. Item 5.1, transit funding formulas, the fiscal year 25-26 coordinated claims. So James, you were going to lead this since Dana's out, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. So this is an informal discussion We did have a, you know, it's a unique month this month where we have our board meeting that happens after the T-TAC. So the T-TAC's already, you know, made action on this item at the last meeting. But let me give you a little bit of background and what's happening, where we're at. So the board packet is out, right? So if you go to the SCTA website, you can see the full board report that's available for board action. And you know, all of our committees last month, all, you know, 100% said we want action, you know, now as opposed to later, with regard to, you know, modifying the coordinated claim, and, you know, how it's been handled historically since 1996 with the, you know, agreement with Golden Gate. You know, the concept of a dynamic formula has been supported by the transit ad hoc. It's been supported by Golden Gate as well. However, there's not been any sort of consensus on, you know, what that formula would be, or, you know, what the solution would be. You know, the request today, is, like I said, not for action. It's if you want to provide any additional input on where we're at and where we're headed. We're not in agreement amongst all of the operators on how we want to treat the coordinated claim. There is, you know, some desire from Golden Gate to, you know, push it out another year and wait for the results of the mascot study. You know, we have met as part of the mascots finance subcommittee, and, you know, we continue to meet as part of what we're calling a data breakout group from that mascots finance subcommittee. Mascots, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's the Marin and Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service. It includes both a plan as well as just overall coordination amongst all the general managers of who operate transit in Marin and Sonoma counties. And, you know, we're at a point now where we're taking an item to the board where we're going to recommend that there would be action by MTC that would change the 25% set aside to Golden Gate from the TDA funds, and that set aside would then be calculated by a dynamic formula that would be equal parts of revenue hours and passenger rail. So we're looking at that Marin formula. It's similar to what we've been talking about as options within the finance subcommittee, but we're only applying it to TDA. We're not applying it to all the fund sources that have been discussed, because TDA is the only limitation of you know, what MTC you know, agreement is limiting to us. And so to not be capped at 25% and to be able to reduce the amount of funding starting in fiscal year 26 to Golden Gate, that'll be the recommendation on Monday to the SCTA RCPA board. You know, I will say that SMART has a similar type performance-based formula for STA funds. So they're, you know, they're capped at 20%, not capped at 25%. And that formula allows SMART to, you know, as they increase, you know, their performance, they get additional funding for out of the STA pot. That's the gist of where we're at, where we're headed. There is no time frame on this. Some of what we heard from this committee and other committee was to reduce it by a fixed percentage and have that fixed percentage be in place for, we heard 1 year, 2 years, 4 years. We heard a couple different amounts. I think this committee acted on a 2-year time frame. This recommendation does not have a time frame associated with it. It only has a recommendation to use it for the fiscal year 26 coordinated claim. If the results of the mascot study are such that we have, you know, a great study that we can all align behind and come up with a new funding formula, we could amend it for the 27 coordinated claim or the 28 coordinated claim whenever we're ready to move forward with a better funding formula. And we do think that there's a better funding formula out there, but we heard loud and clear that now's the time that we want some sort of action, and this is the item that's moving forward. So with that, I would say that this is your opportunity to kind of influence some of the presentation that will go to the SCTA, RCPA board on Monday, comments that you think staff needs to incorporate into their presentation. Please, open and available for, hearing your input. That's what I got.
Hey, James, just a clarifying question. One thing I wasn't clear on in this proposal is, the action, the staff recommendation to the board specifically, as you said, relates to the fiscal 26 coordinated claim. But then what happens after that? Is the board, is that status quo until we come up with something better, or mascots happens, or, what happens in 27? I guess I didn't really have clarity on that.
Yeah, I mean, what I would envision is that it would be the status quo. I mean, we're going to make this ask, right? This is going to be an ask of MTC. So, and first off, MTC is going to have to either act on it or respond to it in some way, right? We don't know what MTC's response is going to be to this request from our board. Without MTC's concurrence, we're still bound by the 25%. If MTC was to concur with it, I do believe at any point we would be at a new status quo. But at any point, right now, the discussion is, oh, well, once we have the mascot study, it's going to be figured out. So if that's true, then absolutely we would revisit it in 26 or 27 with the solution, for the fiscal year 27 coordinated claim with the results of the mascot study. Now, if we're not in agreement on how to implement the mascot study, then we would either stay with the same formula in 27, or we would be having another discussion like this.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, James. Please jump in if you have other comments.
James, I have just some concerns. I don't think this is a reasonable approach, just because it's really a 50% reduction in Golden Gate Transit's contribution. I think what we proposed, the 22% or the 1.7 collectively, was a better approach, a more reasonable approach anyway. And the problem with this calculation is that it doesn't give Golden Gate any cost difference from a Golden Gate trip to San Francisco or to Marin versus a city bus or a Petaluma transit trip locally. You're treating all local hours and all hours and all passenger trips the same here. And certainly on Sonoma County Transit, it costs us more to provide a passenger trip around the county than it does either of the cities. And certainly Golden Gate Transit costs more. So I know there's the hour cost difference, but you're just comparing the one for one, a trip's a trip, which is not really the case. And I also think that, if everyone were to approve this, but this is for 1 year, and the locals are going to get more money, the county will get roughly half of these funds. We're not going to put it in new service because the next year it could change. So I think this is a dangerous approach unless it's a multi-year agreement. We could put it in the capital, and certainly would help our vehicle replacement program, but we wouldn't put it in operations if we don't foresee a 3 or 4 year time span for the funds. So, and this is the first time, I guess we saw this at last Wednesday's call was the first time we saw this proposal. This hadn't been vetted through any of the committees. And it just seems like, we need an alternative. We put it together, but I think we have better formulas that are kind of a better reflection and a reasonable approach versus really cutting Golden Gate Transit's contribution in half.
Yep, I heard you. Prefer a smaller cut to Golden Gate and prefer a multi-year approach.
I think for my part, going back to my question, sort of points to, I do think a consistent theme throughout all of the subcommittee discussions has been, right, mascots, right? Like, how does the service plan that comes out of mascots relate to resources, specifically TDA? And so, I think when I first read the staff report, I was like, wow, if we're not going to look at this again for 10 years, that seems like a missed opportunity, right? To really link in mascots. But, what I heard you saying was, no, we could certainly revisit sooner. And I think that's a positive. Because, my sense of this is, if this was sort of the permanent formula for, the next 10 years, I don't think that would be the right approach given mascots. But the other comment, I would just make is I do think it would be good for the SCTA board to consider, with that relationship to mascots, some policy around how the funds are used, right? Like to implement the mascot service plan, really for all of us. And so I think that's a policy piece that hasn't existed before in the coordinated claim, but I do think it's important given what we're all trying to accomplish collectively with building a better integrated network. So that's just a piece I didn't see in the discussion that I think that's tricky because we all have, our own boards and need a certain level of autonomy around our service. But I also do think that we all, need to have some accountability collectively into each other around, implementing the integrated plan. So that's a tricky topic. And, I do think it's one that just deserves some additional, thought as we move forward. So those are my two comments at this point, but I might have others. Let you guys all wait.
No, the 10 years was absolutely only meant as a cap, right? Not as a term. And that came from one of our directors during the board meeting, where, to have something that hasn't been really revisited since 1996 it needs some more refreshing or revisiting at a more frequent interval.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I agree with most of what's been said here. And I think the good thing about seeing an action taken outside of the mascots working group is that I think the political imperative and the urgency behind wanting to address Golden Gate share really did get in the way of being able to have any real meaningful discussion about a better performance-based share. Because as you said, we do believe there is a better solution out there that looks at more comprehensive funding sources, that looks at a more fair way to compare the data across operators. But it is extremely complicated, as we've seen, and it will take time, and it will need to reflect the conversations that are happening in the other part of mascots with service coordination. So Golden Gate's position is that really a more sustainable solution is going to take some time. So if something has to happen in the meantime to sort of quell the political side of things, then that's what has to happen. But yeah, this does seem a little draconian, and it, as Brian mentioned, on the upside, it's hard to plan for the future if it's just kind of a one-time increase in funds. But then on Golden Gate's side too, our operating sources are just tolls, fares, and STA, TDA, all of which continue to be down for us. So we're not looking at a good situation either on funding our transit service. So.
Yeah, no, Jacob, I appreciate all your efforts you put in as part of that mascots finance subcommittee. And, the last time we got together, it was pretty clear, like, this is going down a political route and there's still a lot of work for the subcommittee to do. So that's why we formed that breakout group. And, you have that laundry list of things that you're continuing to work on. And then that missing piece that really is still out there is the results of the mascots study. to help inform the work. But yeah, there's lots of work that has to be done. Appreciate you keep working on it.
Nothing major for me to add. I agree with kind of the comments about the 10-year timeframe. It's good to clarify that piece. That's the maximum. I agree with kind of that 1-year transition period. We would probably do something similar to what Brian said, help shore up some of the capital side and not necessarily dive in and put that into operating. Not the worst thing, but a good consideration that we would probably do similar. And then I notice it kind of says in the recommendation, a revenue kind of based formula, or sorry, the revenue hours plus passengers, not specifically the Marin formula. I know we were talking about the Marin throughout a lot of it, but there was a few quirks in that I think we wanted further discussion on. So I'm glad it's a bit more open-ended. We can refine it a bit if this is what ultimately gets approved and moved forward at the board meeting on Monday.
Great. Kathleen, I see your hands raised, and let's go ahead and open it up to online after Kathleen chimes in.
Hey, thank you for all the work that's gone into this formula. I just wanted to support some of the comments that Rachel made and others about the tie to mascots. I think sort of the spirit of the tie to mascots is making sure that revenue hours are implemented in a way that is supportive of the spirit of the mascots effort and not in a way to manipulate funding levels and things. So if there is, I don't know if there is any explicit way to tie implementation of mascots to the funding formula as a sort of a carrot at a minimum. Do you think that there is a way to tie it more explicitly, James?
I mean, we're happy to adopt policies, whether it's for our measure money or whether it's for our TDA funds, to dictate how the fund should be spent. We typically get pushback not to do that. In this case, it is somewhat unique in that there is, this opportunity to implement this plan. What I would recommend is that any of those policies are kind of still a side discussion of what's being moved forward now, and that side discussion would be part of the implementation of, or part of the passing of the 26 coordinated claim. So if we want to make any of those policies part of the resolution that SCTA passes when they approve the coordinated claim, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if there's consensus amongst those that receive the coordinated claim, that we want to make clear on how those funds should be expended. There's lots of room for that. Plus there's some time between now and April when that coordinated claim actually comes to fruition, where we can include those policies.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kathleen. Any other comments from Zoom? We can go ahead and open things up to public comment on this item as well. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
No, nothing from me.
Okay. Last call. Any other comments, thoughts? So this will be discussed at our board meeting on Monday. So it'll be on Zoom and here in this room. So looking forward to that conversation. Thank you so much for your comments on that. Before we move on, I do want to go ahead and open things up for public comment on item 4. I neglected to check in with the group to see if there are other comments online or from the public on that item. So let's go ahead and open that up, and then we'll move on to 5.2. Okay. With that, let's move to 5.2. So this is just an announcement that there are a few funding opportunities that are going to be opening up pretty soon from MTC ABAG. So there's one that's focused on the transit-oriented communities policy implementation. So this is more of a planning grant that's really focused on helping get policies in place to make sure jurisdictions are complying with that. And the second piece is a set of implementation grant money focused on implementing MPC's climate program. So there are 4 parts to that, including mobility hubs, parking management, charging infrastructure, and active transportation projects. So particularly that second piece, there may be opportunities for you to look at maybe going after that funding. So MPC is actually going to be at our PAC meeting next Thursday to present on that if you're interested in, tuning in to hear more. But there's also a webinar this afternoon on the TOC policy implementation side of that, which is, I think, around $20 million region-wide. And then tomorrow there's a webinar focused on the climate program implementation. So that should be on the MTC website. If you're having trouble finding registration links for that and you're interested, let me know and I could forward those on. So, but yeah, we will be having a discussion at our PAC if you want to log into those webinars and are interested. Any questions, comments from the room?
For the TOC planning grants, was it kind of your understanding that they're geared towards more kind of like local jurisdictions, cities and counties versus kind of agencies? Because of course, an agency like SMART, we do have there's some TOC planning that we have to do ourselves as well.
That's probably a good question for MTC, right? Like, I think there's a little bit of flexibility there. What I've been hearing is it is really focused on like updating zoning and policies in the general plan and stuff like that to make sure that they're complying. But yeah, I would maybe log into the meeting, the PAC meeting next week. Ada Chan will be here and, pitch that question and see what she's thinking. So I think there could be opportunities there, especially if there's a partnership with, the jurisdictions along the SMART line. Yeah. Cool. Let's go ahead and go to Zoom to see if there are any questions or public comment on that item, 5.2. If not, let's go ahead and move to 6, which is transit integration updates. So I did check in briefly with Dana about this. There wasn't much to report out from SCTA, RCPA on this, but I would open it to the group to see if there are any updates that you would like to share. All right. If nothing there, we can go ahead and move on to item 7, regional meetings report out. I don't see Emily or David here, which are reps on Plan Bay Area 2050 plus and Transit 2050 plus. I can report out that there are a few things that we've been involved in on the Plan Bay Area and Transit 2050 plus front. MTC has released their draft non-transit 2050 plus project list, which is going to their planning committee on Friday. So that's available in their agenda packet if you'd like to see it. And it includes a lot of their program and policy approaches as well. So there's a slide deck and a PDF with projects in there. If you're interested in checking that out. They're also going through another round of engagement, specifically focused around projects and this current bit of information. And they're still working on the Transit 2050 plus piece. So we hope to see more on that soon, the final regional transit network. So on a related note, MTC's been working on updating the equity priority community map and analysis. So there have been a few shifts in Sonoma County. A few notable ones are the Russian River area has dropped off as a EPC. And there are a few areas in Santa Rosa that have kind of dropped off or shifted around. So there are some new ones that have popped up on the east side of Santa Rosa and a few in central and western Santa Rosa that have dropped off as well. So they're planning on going with the draft map for the next plan, which will be with us for the next 3 to 5 years. But then they'll be reopening up that process as part of the next RTP update that they're starting on in 2026. So they're going to completely overhaul the formulas, the data they're using and everything like that going forward. With that said, they have emphasized that they are going to be flexible with their funding requirements on identifying disadvantaged or underserved communities. So EPCs will definitely be a focus of that effort, but you know, if we or you can make the case that an area may be identified using another criteria or other mapping, you know, I think they're willing to be flexible, at least on the MPC funding side. So I know Santa Rosa, as part of the general plan, they did kind of a more detailed analysis using that criteria, and their state maps and other criteria that show different areas as well. So they're willing to kind of be open to those discussions going forward. So, which is good to hear, and we'll keep holding them to that. So yeah, just wanted to give an update on that.
David did send me a couple notes about Transit 2050.
Oh, great.
Plus.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, he said the Transit 2050 Plus project management team met in person on the 26th of September to discuss the 2.0 version 2.0 of the draft network. And then he forwarded me their meeting notes. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions, but yeah, it looks like the group's been really busy. 58 public outreach events. And they held 2 all-day technical workshops. Yeah, there's a lot here, but
do we have kind of a target for when the 2.0 network will be kind of more widely available?
That's what I was looking at, like next steps here, upcoming milestones, continuing to iterate the draft Transit 2050 Plus network. As we work toward a final network to present to the Regional Network Management Council. And in December, looks like.
Okay.
Followed by the joint MTC Planning Committee and ABAC Admin Committee in January. The official dates for each presentation will be forthcoming.
Cool. Thanks for the update. And I think as part of those 58 meetings, I believe one was at the Petaluma Transit Mall. Does that sound right?
Yes,
Jared?
that's correct.
And the city of Sonoma, I think those were where the 2 were this last round.
Yeah, I was actually at the Copeland Transit Mall and the Smart Station Petaluma.
Okay.
So close. Yeah.
2 tables. Yeah. You need a tin can with a wire to. All right. All right. This brings us to transit operator updates, item 8.
Okay, I have one more actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Regional mapping and wayfinding.
Oh, cool.
So regional mapping and wayfinding project is kicking off its pilot projects on October 17th. And the Larkspur Ferry Terminal and Larkspur Smart Station will be the pilot location in Marin County, which is different from the prototype locations that were El Cerrito, Del Norte Park Station, and Santa Rosa Transit Mall. The prototype projects should be nearing installation. He said you might have an update on that, City Bus.
Sort of.
And the regional mapping and wayfinding is set to launch a real-time departure QR code pilot signage program in the next month. And bus stops along Golden Gate Transit routes 580, 580X were chosen for that pilot. And then lastly, the group recently released its Bay Area system map that depicts the region's transit services as a whole.
Yeah, I haven't seen that regional system map. We'll have to look at that. Cool, thank you. So last call on regional meetings. Looking up to Zoom, see if there are any comments or anything to add. David, yes, please jump in.
Good morning, everyone. Dave Sorrell with the San Joaquin Regional Rail Commission. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm not sure if this falls under the current agenda item or if we need to slot this at the end. But in terms of transit integration, or at least in terms of schedules, we've worked with Amtrak as well as the North State Super Region over the course of the last couple of months to start redeveloping our timetables for our Route 7 throughway bus. That serves the Martinez Amtrak station, goes over to Napa, crosses over through 37, serves Petaluma, points north. We've been working kind of strenuously, and we've got a shortened up timetable that launched on October 1st. Our board had approved it at the end of the month. It turned over. I'm happy to share that with you guys after the meeting. But what we intended on doing with the upcoming schedule change, or at least the current schedule change, was to start kind of working towards kind of a streamlined service to help folks that need to get over to the East Bay, or at least over to Napa and Solano counties. But our hope is moving forward that this updated schedule change, which had worked with five scheduled trips inbound, 5 scheduled trips outbound. There's like a short turn that serves Santa Rosa at one point. We straightened it out that it's now down to 4 round trips. However, each of those trips does serve points in Sonoma County. Most of those trips continue onward up towards Humboldt County. And what we're hoping for, as far as our long term, and we will be happy to keep you guys updated, is to kind of work towards this schedule integration where the throughway service could be kind of that catalyst to help support inter-county trips or out-of-county trips, but also towards the bus-only ticketing mechanism that we've launched successfully out in Reading. So that's the only update that comes from us so far. So thank you guys for the time.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dave, for being here and for providing the update. If you want to get any additional information out to the group, just send that over to Drew Nichols, Dana, or myself, and we can make sure that gets distributed.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so moving on to transit operator updates. Anyone want to go first? Or we can start. Brian?
Sure.
Okay?
October is always a good ridership month, and we've had days where we've exceeded our pre-pandemic ridership. So we're not doing it on a monthly basis, but we are getting close to what our averages were in February of 2000. I think that's kind of the big deal for us. The free services are still operating on paratransit and local services, and they're doing well. We got a lot of buses on order. We will see 5 of them next July, and then we're going to the board in November for 7 Gilligs, and then 5 Gilligs probably in February of next February. So these buses won't be here till November 26 or February of 27. Long ways out. We need buses, but we're gonna have them on order. We have 3 BYD buses on order, which will be here by November of 2025. So we're slowly trying to rebuild our fleet. Our charging facility is under construction still. Making some progress, and I think they will be done probably mid-December, and then it's going to sit for a while until we get a switchboard, which is going to be here in February, and then PG&E will come out. So we're expecting next June actually to have it all up and working. So just in time for new buses in July.
For Petaluma Transit, I'll go next. It's been a lot of work on the microtransit side for the LumaGo launch. That launched on September 30th. And so it was a lot of time to set it up, a lot of time doing outreach events in the community, which is great. We've gone out and we've gone to several different areas and groups and nonprofits to help do an educational piece and tell them about the service and do sample trips with it. So there's already been a lot of excitement by people learning about it in the zone, people asking outside of the zone, hey, could we get service at some point? You'd expect. And so we're only about a week in. I would say we're averaging about 25 boardings per day so far. Although some of that is kind of the promo trips that we're doing, like the first week, it'll take a little bit to kind of see how it works and it regulates and what the ridership trends are. But thus far, it seems to be going really smoothly. A few minor tweaks with like stops, pickup areas, as you would expect with the services, but overall it seems to be going pretty smoothly. So that's been a lot of fun to work on. Driver shortage, we're hiring several drivers right now, working the process, but that continues to be an ongoing struggle for us. I'm sure it is for most operators. Vehicles, we still are waiting. Our 4 electric buses should arrive in February, the new Flyer buses. We're doing a few engine rebuilds and swaps on some of the older buses to give us more bandwidth kind of in the meantime until those arise. So we have enough fleet to keep running everything. We're still on track for the improvements to the transit facility for the yard electrification project. That'll let us charge 10 vehicles. We're anticipating having that bid out in about a month or so and having it constructed around February. So still working on that. In terms of ridership for August, fixed route is up 25% compared to last year. Paratransit was up 10%. I think we'll see a big increase again in kind of September when school starts getting back in session for the full month, of course. And then we purchased a number of bus shelters to improve about a dozen stops throughout Petaluma. Those have been ordered, should be arriving and installed in late February, we estimate. And that's it.
Great. Let's see, I have some ridership numbers. It looks like over August, Golden Gate Bridge traffic was down 1% compared to August 2023. So actually slightly down this year. Golden Gate Transit ridership was flat, 0% over last year. And the ferry ridership was up 6%. No other agency updates.
Let's see, on the smart side, last month we carried over 92,000 riders, which was another record for us, which is great. We're also seeing, and that's also about 145% of where we were pre-pandemic. We're also seeing a number of really high bicycle onboard numbers, which is great. Over 14,000 last month. We have been doing a little bit of number crunching and sampling for our free seniors and youth ridership. And we found year over year, at the same time period, about a 30% increase in senior and youth boardings. So that's, going very well. We're very happy with that. On the capital side of things, we recently received a $7 million grant for our pathway construction in Santa Rosa from Guerneville Road to Airport. And that will actually connect with what's under construction right now for the Windsor Station opening. So once those two segments are complete, it'll be a really nice, path basically from Guerneville Road all the way up to Windsor. So that's really exciting. And let's see, we have our pathway wayfinding project is in full swing. So you'll start to see those signs going in this month and next month. And hopefully all of these signs within our right of way will be installed by the end of November. I think it's 750 sign panels, not quite 750 signs, but many hundreds of signs. So that'll be really exciting to get that in. And the first of our real-time arrival screens will be installed at the Petaluma downtown station, I think in 2 weeks. That'll be kind of our kind of trial screen that we'll test as we'll build that out system-wide, but that project also will be completed by the end of November. And we are also we are on track, no pun intended, for our Petaluma North station opening by the end of the year and our Windsor station opening spring 2024.
Awesome. The Few quick things for City Bus. The Transit Mall roadbed project is on track and on schedule, which is great. So the concrete, at the end of last week, most of the concrete had been poured. I'm gonna be over there in a few minutes. Actually, I'm gonna have to jump out pretty soon because I have a meeting over there at 11:30. But so we're keeping an eye on the curing time frame to start to think about the date to move back to the Transit Mall. There are a few things we're looking to get done in the Transit Mall before we move back, just to refresh things and make it clean everything up. Little bit of a reset. And in terms of the mapping and wayfinding prototypes, yeah, so Matt was in a meeting yesterday. I didn't have a good chance to check in with him, but we are definitely in the final steps of MOUs and getting down to brass tacks about installation. And so I think it's, it's really pretty imminent. And I wish I had a better date to give folks, but I'll certainly be following up as I get more information. But yeah, I think things are looking good for that. I don't know if you from the smart side have any information about dates yet.
No, I
Okay.
think it's happening soon.
Soon. Yeah, like lots of things are flying around. So that's really exciting. So it's kind of a nice, so, our initial goal was to have that signage up by the time we move back to the Transit Mall, but we're just gonna have to see how those timeframes play out. We may need to do that installation after we move back if it's, if they need a little bit more time, which is totally fine. So either way works for us. Our August ridership was up year over year about, I think it was a little under 20%, but that's great. I'll take it. That's it.
And thank you everyone for your updates. Let's go ahead and, do we have any additional operator updates from Zoom? And we'll move to public comment.
I'll give a quick one for up Marin Transit.
Yeah, please.
Our ridership continues to be really strong. We've been around 100%, give or take a little bit for a good share of 2024. We're continuing to work on our facility. Our board approved purchase of a facility in Marin County, which is a pretty major move for us. So we don't own it yet, but we're like continuing down that path. Our board just adopted a series of fare free days, actually to align with the Sonoma County operators just yesterday. So I think we've been discussing on the marketing coordination call what fare free days various operators offer. And so we tried to align ours. I think we're doing 6, including Clean Air Day and Rosa Parks and Bike to Work Day and the ADA anniversary. I'm forgetting what the other one is, but it's mostly aligned with what the Sonoma operators are offering, which is great in the spirit of coordination. Those were the main things that it occurred to me might be relevant for this group. So thanks.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. All right. Oh, go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, the bike share installations for drop mobility are really moving forward, especially this week. A lot of the installations, the hubs are already set up and bikes are starting to be dropped this weekend. So keep an eye out for that.
Great, exciting. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and open public comment on the operator updates. Comment or questions? All right, with that. Oh, Linda, yes.
Good morning. My name is Linda Chaffin. I'm from Cloverdale, and I had the opportunity to attend the county's master plan for aging unveiling recently. And in the course of that, I met a person, Maria, who is involved with the LumaGo in Petaluma. And I just want to go on record with all of you great planners that we want that in Cloverdale. We have nothing in Cloverdale besides the bus. That's it. And it's too far away to have Uber drivers or Lyft drivers or taxi, anything. And so really we are in dire need. And I began to feel the impending, encroaching time when I won't be able to drive. And so this makes a huge difference to people. It's almost 30% of the population is over 65 in Cloverdale. Anyway, I just want you to know we want Lumago in Cloverdale. So help me figure out how to make that happen, okay? Thanks for listening.
Great. Thanks for the comment, Linda. Appreciate that. All right, so moving on to other business comments and announcements. Looks good. All right, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a great October.
Thanks for running the show. today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully Dana only has a 1 day